Kearney, and I watched and listened to the way people talked to the folks that came out. And they would say things to them like, who would marry you? Why would a God create you? Why don't you kill yourself? And worse. In the course of doing that research, I found a story that was so mind-blowing that it changed in many ways the way I see race. A group of people with birth defects, I mean severe birth defects, decided they had just had it. They just had it. And in their off-season from exhibiting themselves, they went down to Florida because they had heard that there was a space down there, a place down there, some land down there where folk didn't stare at you and mock you, because mockery is one of the worst kinds of hatred. They went down there, and it makes you feel good about being a human. I'm serious. They cleared the land for 3 years. They built homes proportionate to the people that would live in them. You understand what I mean by that? In other words, for the people we now call little people, they built little homes. They created a Shangri-La, a little piece of heaven on earth. A place, my brother, where nobody would point and say, look at that. Nobody would mock them. And at the end of 3 years, when they started their little town, their little community, they put a sign right out front. And it said, whites only. And when I first heard that story, my first thought was, that's crazy. Of all people in this country, of all people in this Milky Way, they would know what it means to be mistreated. But then the other voice in me said this, why would that surprise me? They grew up in the same country as the rest of us. Isn't that right? So the same prejudices and hatreds that the rest of us had, they had. Sometimes people look at me and they say, you know, you create a Jim Crow museum. You got 9,000 pieces of hatred, which is technically not true, because some of the pieces we have are about civil rights and overcoming hatred. And some of the pieces we have are about African American achievement, which is a way of saying I will not be held down by the hatred. But most of it is hatred. Everyday objects of hatred. Ashtrays, sheet music, postcards, toys, games, and all. And they said, why would you do that? Why don't you just let us forget about all of that? One of my answers to that is this quote from Dr. King. If you read Letter from Birmingham Jail, which is arguably the best well-written letter. I hope there's not somebody here teaching English. It's just a really, really, really good letter. If you read it, it's a public letter. It was written to some specific people with a larger audience in mind. In that letter from Birmingham Jail, he said this, and I'll paraphrase it. You see the actual quote behind me. If you're really going to deal, America, if you're really going to deal with racism and any other kind of injustice, you got to treat it like a boil. No more Band-Aids, no more saying there's nothing wrong with me. Treat it like a boil, lance it, and let all the pus come out. And that's what we do every day at the Jim Crow Museum. I'm going to show you some images. Some of these images are vulgar. You know, I don't like children coming into the museum. I think children should discuss race, but we should be like number 16 on the stage, not number 1. But sometimes I'll let an 8th and 9th grade class come in only if their parents come in first. The most amazing thing, each time the parents come in, there's one section. These are caricatured items of African Americans as sexual beings, as Jezebel and whores. And the parents will say, listen, you can show everything else, but this right here you can't show because it's vulgar. And my response to that is, all of this is obscene. Everything in here is profanity. We are in the business to teach. To teach. If you can't teach about injustice at a college campus, close it. Just close the door. And Reverend, I'll add something here too. And it's been a long time since I've been in the front of a church. But if you can't teach about social justice in a church, close it. That little room soon will be a big room. And in that little room, what you have are these objects of hatred. But they're not there as a shrine. They're there as tools. They're to take someone's hatred and turn it into something good. Something that you can use to teach. First piece of racist object I bought was a mammy shaker. I was 12, 13 years old. I broke it in front of the person. I didn't break the second piece or the third piece, but I broke that first piece. Not because I was philosophically well adjusted for some 13-year-old. I just hated the way it looked. We have traveling exhibits. We got children in here, and I gotta be careful what I'm saying, but that target right there, it's called the running in. And if you go on the internet, every so many years you'll find that a police department or some other federal policing agency will be being sued by some of its black or brown employees because when they went to their annual picnic, someone pulled out one of these and started shooting actual bullets at it. You can't tell from that, but that thing is this thick. Guns don't kill people, bullets kill people, but guns make bullets go really, really fast. And the speed that it would take to get a bullet through that's a high-powered weapon. But it's also a target. That's a traveling exhibit that we have. And in that traveling exhibit, it's interesting. The reason I created the first traveling exhibit was because people were like, where's Big Rapids? You know, Ferris State University where we are. And I'd be like, well, we're like 2,500 miles east of San Francisco, you know. And they're like, where's San Francisco? And these are people you don't talk to. But the fact of the matter is that not everybody's going to come to Big Rapids. So I thought we'll put together some objects in there and we'll take the lessons around. And that's what we did here. And all those objects dealt with African Americans because they came out of a Jim Crow museum. The first week we take that on the road, someone says to me, you say you're against racism, you say you're against oppression, why do you only have an exhibit that deals with African Americans? I'm like, it's a Jim Crow museum. But shortly thereafter, because I did read the writings of Dr. King closer than I did when I was a 17-year-old, and when he said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice what? Everywhere. And then we created other exhibits. And I got to stop and say this every time I get a chance. I've been working using these objects for over 30 years of my life. And for the last 15 years, I've been trying to move into a place where we can better do the work we're doing. And I'm very grateful that Fred Shell and other people at DTE Energy, that they came forward, because now the Ferris State University Board of Trustees right after that voted to spend the rest of the money. And this time next year, we will have a full museum, and you'll be welcome to it. Our goal is to get people to talk about race. We're not afraid to talk about race. We're afraid not to talk about race. There's some big lies in this country. One of the big lies is that if you stop talking about race, racism will go away. That doesn't even make stupid sense. The reality is we talk about race all the time. We talk about it in the bathrooms, in the corridors, at our dinner tables. We talk about it in places where our ideas are not challenged. It's not that we don't want to talk about race. We don't want to listen to what the other person is saying. That's an everyday object. A T-shirt I bought in Fort Myers, Florida. A lot of the old caricatured images of African Americans are now being placed on Caribbean Americans. If you were to come into the museum, you don't hear me talking